FBI and CIA agents, what can you tell us without killing us afterward? We're all forbidden from using sites like this or social media in general. Confirmed. Now you're going to kill us all. Nice try, Vladimir. Back in the 80s, my dad worked at the government communications headquarters in the UK. They were doing voice recognition. That's all he can say for now. He's still not allowed to talk about most of what he did for another 10 years. But yeah, kind of like how Siri or Google can recognize your voice today. They could already do that back then. It just took a lot longer. Aha! You want to know which accounts belong to FBI and CIA agents, right? That's it, huh? Gotcha, shepherd boy. I'm watching you. That's sarcasm, of course. Please don't kill me. My dad worked for the government. He once told me that whenever he interacted with foreigners, say had dinner at a friend's place or went on vacation to Canada, he had to write a full report about every conversation. And of course, if he noticed anything suspicious, he was required to report it. Once at a wedding, I met a retired CIA officer. He looked exactly like Colonel Sanders. Awesome guy, I said to him. I don't want you to tell me anything you're not allowed to, but I've always wondered, when JFK was killed, what were people saying around the water cooler in your office? He didn't flinch, didn't hesitate. He said, hell, we all thought Johnson did it. Note, Lyndon Johnson was the US president after Kennedy. Johnson really wanted to be president. The FBI hiring process can take a long time. And there's a high chance you'll have to deal with crimes against children. That's tough. Most people don't want anything to do with that. I used to work at a CDN content delivery network, and part of my job involved processing child exploitation reports. I had to review them and forward them to our FBI contacts. I lasted 6 months, only because without that job, my wife and kid would have starved. I quit over a decade ago, but I still get flashes of the horrific stuff I saw. There's a certain percentage of truly messed up people in our world, and they do some seriously messed up things. A former guy from the agency once told me that the show, Get Smart, is actually closer to reality than any James Bond movie. Just the other day, I saw a post, can't remember if it was here or on Twitter, saying that when you really think about it, Bond is a terrible spy. He falls for every honey trap, constantly tells people his code name. James Bond is really just a distraction. While he's running around doing flashy crap, other agents are quietly carrying out actual sabotage and spy work. There are different kinds of spies. For example, the CIA's elite group is called the Special Activities Division, SAD. It's split into two branches, the Political Action Group, SADPAG, which are unarmed agents working for decades to destabilize enemy governments from within, and the Special Operations Group, SAD-SOG, where the CIA recruits Navy SEALs and Green Berets. These agents can blend in as civilians, wear fancy suits, go on high-stakes poker missions, assassinate key targets, and escape hostile territory by trekking through brutal wilderness for a month if they have to. James Bond is supposed to be an MI6 agent, kind of the British equivalent of the CIA's SAD-SOG, just with more glamour and a posh accent. And in the Bond stories that take place after World War II, the villains always seem to live in Berlin, Moscow, or Hong Kong. But in reality, today's bad guys are probably holed up in some crappy cave in Kyrgyzstan or sitting in an office on Wall Street. The funny thing is, super spies like James Bond probably do exist in real life. It's just that instead of flying first class on a Concorde and escaping a mission on the villain's stolen yacht, they're smuggled into Tehran, strapped to the underside of a pickup truck, and have to walk all the way to the Persian Gulf to get out. Not exactly glamorous. I once worked with a woman who used to be an NSA agent. We always begged her to tell us something, but she kept her mouth shut. The only thing she ever shared was that during training, they were shown a video full of absolutely horrifying stuff. She said she could barely sleep for 2 weeks afterward. A relative of mine retired a few years ago after working at the NSA. She shared a few general things, nothing specific. Still, here are some of them. You see things that completely change your understanding of the world. People go in with high ideals, wanting to change the world and all that. But within a few months, those ideals tend to fade away. Most people who stick around long enough are eventually given a tour of counterterrorism operations. Many quit after just a few months, but on average, people last about 2 years. Those who stay longer often end up changing for the worse. A lot of them develop mental health issues, become alcoholics, get divorced, and generally end up living miserable lives where their work is the only thing they have left. Alcoholism is a common problem in the agency. When you're not allowed to talk about your work with anyone who isn't also part of the agency, it becomes nearly impossible to truly trust the people closest to you. Even if you have close friends at work or family members who are also involved with the NSA, you still have to be careful what you say, because not everyone is cleared for every project or program. Two people can sit next to each other in the same office, working on the same program for months, and never talk about it with each other, even if they're good friends outside of work. My relative's husband worked in another government agency and also had a high-level security clearance, but she still couldn't talk to him about her work, and he couldn't talk to her about his. There are therapists within the agency who are cleared to know almost anything, any program, any operation, but going to them is often seen as shameful or weak by other employees, so people don't make use of them as often as they probably should. She told me all of this when she was trying to recruit me into the NSA. She thought I'd be more likely to join if I knew what to expect. In the end, I decided not to apply. By the time I finished college, I had spoken with recruiters from the CIA and even took a few of their tests. I came pretty close to applying. What stuck with me the most was how they made it clear that most CIA officers are not physically fit or combat trained. They have minimal training in both armed and unarmed combat. They specifically told us that the military are the ones who actually use force. If a CIA officer ends up in a physical confrontation, they're trained to either surrender immediately or run if there's a chance to escape. Fun fact, the I in CIA stands for intelligence, not intimidation. No idea why that surprised you so much. Based on what I heard from CIA and FBI recruiters, the job is mostly a grind. Sure, once in a while you might get involved in something exciting, but for the most part, it's still a 9-to-5 office job. Honestly, it's way more about paperwork than it is about being James Bond. What they never show you in James Bond movies is all the paperwork he has to do once he gets back to the office. I once rented out my old farmhouse to a family. They paid rent every month, and my only complaint was that they never mowed the lawn. Everything changed when I got a call from the DEA, telling me that my tenant had been killed in Mexico. They were asking for permission to search the house. Turns out, I had unknowingly rented my place to the Mexican cartel, and they had been using it as a safe house. Everything started to unravel when 2 of their guys got caught with a bag full of meth. My tenant had to return to Mexico to visit his mother. That's where he got killed. Never renting to anyone ever again. Did you seriously not even ask them if they were working for a Mexican cartel? Dude, come on! He followed a strict don't ask questions rule, cartel policy. I was an analyst, not a field agent. About 85% of all classified information is labeled that way. Not because it's super valuable, but because of how it was obtained. Before he died, my cousin told us he wasn't really an engineer at General Electric. He actually worked for the CIA. That's all he could say. Edited to add, "My uncle was a good Christian man. I doubt he lied to us." I also don't think he had dementia or anything like that. Sounds more like high-level trolling from your uncle. LOL. If I live to old age and have nieces and nephews, I'm definitely going to pick one and tell them I work for the CIA. Just one of them. Let the mystery drive them nuts. Speaking of the FBI, one time I was in the sauna after a gym session, and this old man with really long balls started chatting with me out of nowhere. Somehow the conversation led to me mentioning that I had a new roommate who happened to be Saudi. Then he told me he worked for the FBI and that he knew who I was. He asked if I'd like to make a bit of cash by providing information every now and then. I said sure. Not because I thought my roommate was suspicious, more because he once got drunk and pissed on my couch. That was like 10 years ago. I never heard from that old guy again, but I'm pretty sure my phone was tapped for a while. Like for the long balls. Honestly, I stopped reading after that and just started visualizing them. Couldn't help it. 2 family stories. My dad's uncle always told everyone he worked at a button factory. Turns out, after he died, we learned he had actually worked at a missile plant, assembling gyroscopes for guidance systems. We always knew my grandfather worked at the Pentagon, but no one really knew what he did. Every 6 months or so, he'd call my mom and have a short conversation, some catch-up. Then he'd say, "I'm about to get a clearance upgrade. You'll probably get a call soon." Just wanted to give you a heads up. Sure enough, a week later, someone from some random government agency, it was different every time, would call and ask for her. They'd grill her with questions and that'd be it. When he died from Alzheimer's, 4 men in black suits showed up at the funeral. None of us knew who they were. Afterward, they approached his widow and handed her a plaque with 17 agency symbols on it. Turns out, he was in charge of interagency cooperation and training, basically making sure that different agencies shared knowledge and worked together. Now his son works for them too. What he does, we have no idea, and we don't ask. He button factory cover is hilarious, but honestly kind of genius. After college, a friend of mine from high school got a job at the National Reconnaissance Office. Back then, they were responsible for analyzing imagery from spy satellites. She told me 2 things. They had a special chute in the hallway, kind of like a trash chute, for disposing of classified materials. Before a newbie could dump anything into it, they had to shout their badge number down the chute. A little hazing tradition, I guess. But it was pretty funny. She didn't really tell me much about the satellite imagery itself, of course, but she did let one interesting detail slip. Some of the images showed Russian sailors sunbathing completely naked on the deck of a submarine somewhere in the Black Sea. The photos were so clear, she said you could probably turn one into a pinup poster, male nudity edition. So yeah, a few decades ago, US intelligence got a good look at some Russian dick. Thanks for tuning in. If you've got similar stories, drop them in the comments.